Great question, Monica. How do you close up or round up intimate and meaningful conversations, especially when people feel that they've maybe just shared something quite vulnerable, right? Happens to me all the time because I often use my Ask Deep Questions cards, and there is different categories, and even one of them is called vulnerable questions. So people do get to share something quite deep and intimate with each other, and I don't want them to be experiencing a vulnerability hangover. So let's talk about how do we make sure that we don't leave people in this vulnerable state when we close up a session or close up an activity. Like with anything, having a good debrief is often, like with any activity, having a good debrief can be more powerful than the activity itself. And when it comes to sharing things that are vulnerable, it often means that every person, every participant, even myself, we think, oh, I'm afraid of sharing this because I think I'm the only one. So when I design a session, my goal is to have them feel the opposite. I don't want them to feel alone. I want them to feel more connected to each other. I want them to feel a greater sense of belonging. And that happens when we realize that we're not alone. We're not the only ones going through a challenging time, going through a certain challenge. So just checking in when people, let's say, come back from a breakout room, type in one word in the chat of how you're feeling right now, which number one will give them a sense of, oh, there's other people who feel similar to me. I'm not the only person. Number two, as a facilitator, you get a chance of understanding, was that activity successful? Because you can't be in a breakout room, so you're kind of keeping, like, crossing your fingers that it will work out well. So it's kind of hitting it with there's two benefits to this. And the other thing, of course, if there are things that are deeper, you want to ask for a little bit more of a debrief, like seeing that Monica maybe shared in the chat, I felt, anxious. I could check in with Monica. I could ask her, hey, Monica, I see you wrote anxious in the chat. Are you open to elaborating a little bit on what you mean by that? And that way you just add a little bit to the debrief. And anytime you can have somebody unmute and share, that is much better because that gives them another chance to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel acknowledged, and in the end help with them feeling more connected and not so much of a vulnerability hangover. And the last thing I'll share, I know my time is up, but this is a really important one. Whenever I close a session, and this is a challenge with virtual meetings, when you close the session right after you've had participants be really vulnerable, that means that they're basically from one moment where they feel they're with a group to the next moment completely by themselves sitting in front of their computers. So every time when I design something like that, I plan in at least 15-20 minutes after the official end of the activity of the session, that I'm still sticking around for anybody who wants to talk, who wants to share additional comments, who has some feedback, because that's what usually happens in person, right? The ones who want to stick around, they will, and they will start chatting with you a little bit while you're packing up your things. So it's really important to do that when you have people be more vulnerable with each other. I hope that helps.